Hello again. My name is Jennifer Scott, and I am the registered nurse with my registration suspended currently due to my vocalisation of non-support for the trans agenda and the affirmation model in New Zealand. So this is my second presentation. I did an interview with Counterspin Media that the information has been taken away by the police and on all of their devices. So this is the second part of the interview that I did with Hannah. So this is about falling further down the rabbit hole. Who's doing it? Where did it come from? Legislation changes made by the New Zealand government and changes to medical records, teaching gender identity in schools, what they don't want you to know, breaches of child protection policies and guidelines and DHBs and the education sector, and the end goal of the trans agenda: destroy the sacred, destroy the masculine and the divine feminine. So two things I missed out in my first presentation, which I forgot to mention, was that currently in New Zealand, because of the cancel culture, because of the silencing, with in regards to the surgeries, so the double mastectomy, the removal of the breasts of young girls, the creating of a fake penis and the created fake vagina. We don't know where those surgeries are taking place. Well, I don't know where those surgeries are taking place, and I don't know how many surgeries are taking place each year. And again, this is all due to the silencing and the cancel culture going on. So unless we were to do some really good OIAs, we possibly might not be able to get that information. My second point that I wanted to make was that I'm focused on children and young adults, and then there is the adult side of things. I have my own personal beliefs around that, which I'm not really much in support of. I believe in psychotherapy and psychology for individuals. So males who are identifying as women and going into female-only spaces, they have a thing called autogynephilia. So I recommend that people go away and look that up. Autogynephilia, there's a lot of them out there, and they're more than happy to flaunt their stuff for you all to see that. The risk with all of this is that these males are entering into female-only spaces. We had a male who competed in the female-only category at the Olympics last year as well. So there was a young woman that missed out on a place on the podium because of him. We also have males in female-only prisons up in the North Island, and they have gotten some females pregnant. So by all means, this is not an issue that doesn't cause problems. It does cause a lot of problems. We also have males going into female-only change rooms, female-only swim sessions around the country. Young girls who have been at the pool, they'll walk home in their wet togs because they don't want to get changed because there might be a male in there. So yeah, this is a issue that is going on. In Australia, we have in Melbourne another feminist. She made a website called No Conflict, they said. So I highly recommend anybody who has been affected by this stuff, any female, to go on to No Conflict, they said, and write your little piece on there, and share your stories online, because we really need to hear about them. Go along to Speak Up for Women on Facebook. Speak Up for Women is there. We're waiting for you to talk about what's happening, and we're here for your support. So anyway, to support you. Anyway, we'll go on to this next slideshow presentation. So throughout New Zealand, there are posters being put up called Tell Us Your Pronouns. I found this one in a facility I was at about a year or two ago, and I wondered, well, what's all this pronoun business about? I went away and started questioning things. I spoke to a couple of psychiatrists I worked with. So originally it was about people's feelings. Another, we talked about J.K. Rowling in America and the abuse that she received for speaking out about this stuff as well. So there are a lot of healthcare professionals that I know that support me, and they support what I do, they support what I speak about. But again, they're in a position where the verbal abuse, the online abuse is horrific and disgusting, and that is a reason why they're not speaking out, because they're too afraid to speak out, because they don't want to lose their medical their practice, like what's been done to me, really. So I put my hand up for this a year ago. I could see what was happening internationally, and I knew what I would get. So it's how it is. So yeah, these posters are up around the country. I don't really often support or advocate for destroying things, but if you see one of these posters, please pull it down. Send me a picture. So where did all this come from? It came from John Money in the 60s and 70s. He conducted countless experiments on infants. His most famous experiment to prove an idea that he had, which was based on no scientific evidence, finally resulted in 2 of his infant twins victims taking their own lives in their 30s. He has no idea what happened to the others. So this was 2 twin boys. One of them obviously had some genetic things going on, and they decided to call him a female, a girl, and he always struggled with that. And yeah, unfortunately, later on, they took their lives in their 30s. So this was all his stuff was all to do with gender. He was discredited. But now, within the last 15 years, his ideas have been resurrected by the billionaires, capitalists who are just wanting to make money off from the pharmaceutical industry, from the drugs and the surgeries that they can promote. Genevieve Gluck on YouTube has done a really good video, and also really good got really good information there. And there's also the dark history of transgender medicine. So I just recommend people to go away and research those things for yourselves. So Stonewall was formed in 1989 to support lesbian and gay rights. It was originally the LGB. They produced guidelines to support LGB people in workplaces and the community. Within recent years, the name was changed to the LGBTQ+I, the addition of the trans, queer, intersex plus. This has caused significant harm to the protection of sex-based human rights, as the trans in the new guidelines allows males to say they are the opposite sex and use female-only designated facilities. Many companies and businesses have left Stonewall and its guidelines behind. So overseas, internationally, again, the Stonewall diversity scheme has been left behind because it was hijacked by the TQI+. Yeah, so that's where part of where all of this is coming from as well, where businesses and facilities across New Zealand have been implementing the guidelines, which also comes from the government to promote inclusivity, but it actually does the opposite. It excludes women from our female-only spaces. So who's doing it in New Zealand? We have Rainbow Youth, Gender Minorities Aotearoa, and Inside Out, which have all been infiltrated and influenced by the LGBTQ+. And this is direct taxpayer-funded services that are supported by the government. New Zealand government and external agencies has used the Stonewall guidelines and the YPath guidelines to make their own. This is despite international reports and concerns that they do not uphold sex-based human rights. So another document we have for mental health professionals is this Rainbow People one as well. Also on one of these websites, can't remember which one it is, but they also advertise and sell breast binders as well. So it's really concerning that items like this are being promoted and supported by the Ministry of Health, which are actually damaging young female bodies, and that I'm well aware that the government is able to restrict drugs and restrict certain things from entering the country. So I have no idea why we would be allowing breast binders, and they certainly weren't around when I was younger, so I've got no idea why they're around now. And we also have, again, PATHA, the Professional Association for Transgender Health Aotearoa, and they are the main, one of the main groups of healthcare professionals going around trying to teach young healthcare professionals how to be a gender affirmer. So last year, at the start of the year, I had noticed a few things going on where I worked. So I started delving in deep a little bit further, and I found this on medical records. So within DHBs now, within the system where we go in to put in your patient details, the drop-down menu is now not specified female, male, gender diverse, indeterminate, and unknown. And the pictures is a little bit clear because my phone wasn't able to take a close-up picture without it being a bit blurry. So of course I was emailing above in capital letters, what is going on here? This is so unsafe medical practice. I need to know, as a nurse, healthcare professionals, we need to know what sex someone is so that we can provide adequate healthcare. So I'm not sure, well, obviously this hasn't been changed, and I'm pretty sure that throughout the country in each DHB that the drop-down menu may be different. So if you're out there, go and have a look. Go and have a look in the DHB where you work, and see what the drop-down menu is for where you work. So these changes, when I took this photo, was in about April, March last year. These were made in the system well before the BDMRR bill had even been presented to the public for submissions. So the BDMRR bill is the Births, Deaths, Marriages and Relationships bill, where they were talking last year about changing birth certificates. And we had Speak Up for Women go around the country to try and inform New Zealanders, inform women about what was going on, about if we allow people to change their birth certificates, then that means that males are going to be entering more into female-only spaces. So they were, again, harassed online and verbally abused, even outside the facilities where these presentations were taking place, about legislation that is going to affect all of the population. So at the end of the day, the government had already made all these changes in the public healthcare system well before New Zealanders even had a say. So as with changes to the medical records, I then explored further and discovered the document, the Consumer Health Identity Standard by the Ministry of Health. So this document also had changes made to it in a very short time frame, where it was about changing medical records. So it wasn't just sex, so they could also use the term gender. So it was in around June, July last year. The submissions for this was open for around 6 weeks. It wasn't advertised. I don't know where it was advertised. There were from memory, about 14 or less submissions to about this Consumer Health Identity Standard and the term gender being added to it. There was nothing there about the concerns about putting gender and changing sex on medical records. So I placed in an OIA asking some questions. What I got back from that OIA is that your submission is late, but we're going to put your concerns in with the bunch of the other ones. So that's as far as it got, really. So this is the in the Ministry of Health. This is the document here that they've used to add in gender to be able to change the medical records. But again, within each DHB, I don't know if all of that drop-down menu is the same in each DHB. Yeah, again, changes made with limited public awareness and questioning. So what we had going on last year and this year with legislation and policies being changed and gender identity being added in is to allow for the medical practice to occur and to continue. So we have the BDMRR bill, which was the changing of birth certificates. 80-90% of submissions and people who spoke up against this bill were against it. However, these concerns and submissions were ignored and the bill went ahead anyway. And like I said before, the government already made the changes in their system, so they didn't care what we had to say anyway. The conversion therapy bill in 2022, or at the end of 2021. So a lot of people think, oh, yay, that's great. We don't want to harm lesbian and gay people. Well, in fact, this conversion therapy bill had gender identity added into it. So this was in order to prosecute any healthcare professional, parent, or religious body for questioning someone and their self-identified opposite gender. This leads to inadequate assessment and treatment for youth who are struggling. Psychotherapy is the first-line treatment option for those suffering from gender dysphoria. So this therapy is under threat. I'm not entirely sure about where the conversion therapy bill is sitting right now. Yes. So then we also have the hate speech bill that's not yet introduced. So that's designed to shut down anyone who speaks up, speaks truth, and send people to court if they offend an individual. So if the hate speech bill was introduced, then there'd be some older adult male out there who would go, oh, she's hurt my feelings because she's saying that I'm not actually a woman. I'm going to take her to court because you've hurt my feelings, you've offended me. And the Oranga Tamariki bill. So this also, behind closed doors, is to remove the Children's Commissioner, which creates a government silo where child abuse and child trafficking can take place behind closed doors. So what this means is that if Oranga Tamariki have a family who support gender-affirming care, a child is placed into their care and has gender dysphoria, they can affirm that child as being the opposite sex and take them down the pathway of medicalisation. So also what this means is that if the Children's Commissioner is removed, and it's only from the government who are inspecting what's going on, they can place children with families who they know that they will transition this child. So that's the danger of all of this stuff. And all of this legislation and bills have had gender identity added into them in order for this medical practice to keep continuing. So what's next? The children, of course, we don't want to miss them out, do we? So the Ministry of Education in September 2019 released their relationships and sexuality education. These documents from years 1 to 8 and then 9 to the next group up, the high school students. So these documents, please, as a principal, as a teacher, scrap them. They do not uphold sex-based human rights. There are so many red flags on these documents, and so many parents need to be really aware about what your children are being taught. So These are guidelines. They do not need to be taught. So my advice would be for teachers to keep teaching what you have been teaching, and please don't implement these. If you have implemented these, please be aware that they do not uphold sex-based human rights, and what you are teaching, it leads to a pathway for children to have gender dysphoria, to believe that they're born in the wrong body, for other youth and other children to support and encourage other classmates to believe that they're the opposite sex. So here we go on page 20, 5 to 10-year-olds. It allows males to use female-only change rooms so they feel included, and provide facilities for those who don't identify as male or female, encouraging teachers to affirm a child's gender dysphoria. So schools need to ensure that students can access toilets and changing rooms that align with their gender identification. So again, they are making it very explicit that, yes, we are going to be teaching your children that if at school they decide that now they're a boy instead of a girl, we're going to let them use the boys' toilets. Many students, including trans, non-binary, or intersex students, may feel vulnerable having to change clothes in front of others. Well, yes, girls do feel probably very uncomfortable most of the time having to change in front of males. So this type of thing shouldn't be happening, but here they are trying to make it normalized. And this is the same for the years 9 to 13. The same thing is written in here, including those who are trans, non-binary, or intersex. This is what they're teaching your children, that there are non-binary and intersex people. Well, intersex, yes, but non-binary, no, there isn't. So again, allows males to use female-only change rooms so they feel included. So I'm aware throughout the country that this is already happening. This is already taking place. There are boys going into the female-only change rooms at high schools. Parents are angry. Girls at the schools are angry. There are boys who are being awarded awards in an all-girls school as well. So there's boys who are enrolled in all-girls schools taking awards away from females. What's happening overseas is that all-girls schools are deciding not to call themselves an all-girls school because they don't want to offend anybody. I mean, this is just getting ridiculous. Also in the United States, a young boy who was saying he was a girl, he was going into female toilets and change rooms. He ended up raping 1 or 2 girls at that school. And obviously the father of those girls was furious, and the teachers at that school tried to cover it up and hide it. So again, with all of this, they are trying to also say to teachers that they're allowed to change your child's name, and they're allowed to, without you knowing about it. And that this is what's happening, and that's why these children are being led down a path to believe that they're born in the wrong body, when in fact it's being taught to them. So parents beware. Robert Houlgand from British Columbia in Canada was punished with 6 more months of imprisonment for violating a court order that prohibited him from identifying himself in public and objecting his teenage daughter undergoing transgender therapy through the intake of testosterone. So I think he's possibly still in prison at the moment. This has also been happening in America, and it has happened in Australia as well. And so this is where it goes to. So your kids get taught it in school. The medical professionals are being taught to affirm your child, and all the legislation and documents that they've added gender identity to are all lined up in order for the state to take over the care of your child and to affirm that your child is in fact born in the wrong body, and you as a parent have no rights to disagree with this whatsoever. Yes. So the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Health. So how come we have all of these child protection policies in place in the first place? Well, it's obviously to protect the rights of the child and their physical well-being and mental well-being. And yet we have the Ministry of Education providing sexual education documents that are clearly in conflict with sex-based human rights and not promoting gender dysphoria and also puberty blockers. So what I wrote to my DHB, because I realised that the child protection policy and the district health board I worked in was in conflict with the gender affirming guidelines. So the gender affirming guidelines are in breach of the child protection and prevention policies that are already currently in place in DHBs. This is because it is medical, emotional, and educational neglect. So it can cause grievous bodily harm of a child, minor, youth by stopping, changing a child's natural development, stopping both bone and brain growth during a significant developmental period, unknown long-term effects on the endocrine system. It is unknown if a child's body repairs fully after receiving puberty blockers and then not taking cross-sex hormones. A child may experience increases in suicidality, depression, and regret. They are lifelong medical and pharmaceutical patients. A special surgery has to be undertaken for male children who have been placed onto blockers at a young age as their penis was unable to fully develop. Those undertaking surgeries can be subject to surgical complications and infections. The drugs are used off-label and are experimental. They may be being denied access to appropriate psychological and therapeutic help. A child may never be told that it is scientifically impossible for a human to change sex. This is withholding important information from the child to be able to make a fully informed medical decision. Children's bodies and brains are still developing until the age of around 25. It has been deemed that it is highly unlikely that a child has the capacity to understand the long-term consequences of taking puberty blockers. So if any healthcare professional would like to have a copy of what I've written in regards to the breaches so that you can pass it on to your upper management, then please get in contact with me, and you can do that by emailing me at suffragettesnz@protonmail.com. So when I discovered that all of this stuff was happening and I saw that medical records being changed and all the legislation that was a part of that, and then also the sexual education documents that came out, then I wrote this document called New Zealand and Gender Dysphoria in Youth, so I wrote this in May 2021 and asking for an urgent review of puberty blockers. In this, I highlight the international concerns and the need to cease the use of puberty blockers and the affirmation model for those presenting to healthcare services with gender dysphoria. So a number of New Zealand politicians have a copy of this document, which they have ignored or have chosen to remain silent on this issue. And again, I call out to any politician to get in contact with me or start speaking up about this stuff, start fighting against this stuff, because what is in place is going to teach children that they're born in the wrong body and that they can be placed on a medicalized pathway, which destroys their healthy body. So, what else do we have going on here? We have political abuse of psychiatry by the New Zealand government, because we have the Declaration of Hawaii, we have the Declaration of Geneva and the Nuremberg Code and the Declaration of Helsinki. We have the Hippocratic Oath for healthcare professions and the Physician's Oath as well. So why are they doing all of this, and why do they use the rainbow? The rainbow links to the 4 elements of earth, air, fire, and water. Children like the rainbow. They think it's pretty. So of course, let's use the rainbow so that we can influence them with our agenda. And Big Pharma is down there with his pot of gold at the end of it. That's what he's all about, is making money off these vulnerable children. And then at the end of the day, the trans agenda is to destroy the masculine, destroy the feminine, and to destroy the sacred. And that's what we see, and we are being promoted with by celebrities and what's on TV. And even within some children's shows, there can be some explicit stuff going on, but it's kind of hidden in plain sight, really, so that they can teach this. So it's about grooming, the grooming of children to have this normalized for them. So at the end of all this, I just want to talk to some of the teenage girls right now in high school. So I was in high school. A lot of us were in high school. And when I was in high school, that's around 10, 15 years ago, there weren't boys going into the girls' toilets. And there weren't boys going around saying they were girls either. So I think that you're thinking that you're being friendly and you're being supportive of any male classmate who is saying that they're a female, and that's really kind of you. But at the end of the day, this is really dangerous. You don't need to be supporting them to say they're a female, because they're not. They're still a boy. They're still developing. If you want to support him to be more feminine, to wear dresses and wear makeup, that's fine, but he's not a female. So you're actually promoting him more with his gender dysphoria rather than supporting who he is himself. He may in fact just be gay. So, and if you're letting these males go into your female-only spaces, you're also impacting the other girls that you have around you at school. If you're letting them go into your sports teams, you're missing out. They're taking awards from us. Like, why would you want to be doing this? So there's a lot of stuff going on here at the moment. This is why I'm speaking out about it. This is why so many other women and so many other people around the world are speaking about the dangers of this stuff and the absolute nonsense of it all, the grooming of children. And again, what I've said here is just destroying the sacred. So thank you all for listening. I hope, again, I've shared some important information with you. Go away again and research for yourself. There's plenty out there. Email your the politicians, email the candidates that are up in your local councils, and start asking questions. Talk to healthcare professionals as well. Let them share this video with them so that they can know what's going on as well. And 19th of September is Suffrage Day, so I look forward to seeing women out on the streets dressed in white, doing some chalking, doing some arts and things, and sharing that online with everybody. Thank you again for listening in, and I hope that you've learned some more stuff today. Thank you very much.